This is going to be interesting, okay? The basis project is about the transhumanization, okay? And what the T27 implants mean to him. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to give it to you, all right? But don't frighten me to death. Okay? Over to you, Kieron, all right?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Over to you, Kieron.
Fire away, thanks. Okay. I'm losing my cherry here today, so if I don't structure things perfectly, I mean, forgive me. And also, anything really could happen, because I literally am, at times, a human being that is remote controlled completely. And I'm no hippie either. And I've also changed what I was going to talk about to a degree as well, because I looked at the list of people here today, and you know, they know a lot more about the history and background of mind control and the programs that people like me, that have produced people like me, than I actually do myself. So what I want to concentrate on is talking to you about TIs. Now, how many of you know what a TI actually is? A TI is a targeted individual. Well, I'm glad about that. Not many of you do. Because you need to know. Because there are, well, hundreds at least, but I believe hundreds of thousands perhaps, but definitely thousands around the world. This is happening all over the world. I'm also one of those people. I spent months, years of my life in isolation being targeted with directed energy weapons. In a moment I'm going to show you what's inside of me. I am literally wired up internally from my head to my feet with technology. They spent years convincing me as well, but I'm also property of the British Army. I'm a psychological warfare operative. I've got to bring this abroad. People have to know this. They need to know this. I've survived so many attempts on my life, it's unbelievable. But I'll perhaps go into some of that a little bit later on. I think I should move on straight away now to showing you. I might need your help in a moment, mate. Yeah, cool. Okay. Right, that's the inside of my head, that is, you know, that's my mind. It should really just belong to me. But what you can see here in the cochlear regions, they are T27 biomedical implants. Now, I was told this by a doctor at King's College Hospital in London. Went to see a friend who worked at an analyst's house in the city who worked in the medical research field. We were to discover that T27 biomedical implants are openly for sale on the internet, but they're designed for non-human free-roaming primates so that they could be monitored in the wild by scientists via specialist computer and satellite monitoring equipment. In other words, high-tech monkey monitors, basically. But below my brain here as well, this is blown up so it gets a bit more distorted. I can try and take that down a bit, actually. Hang on. Yeah. As you can see below my brain here, there's a white triangular bit as well. That's a truss. This is all linked together. This is called wetware. Now, I'll move on to the next one in a moment, but you'll also see that there are probes inserted into my brain. Now, most of you these days will at least use a mobile phone or a laptop, as this one can be linked to the internet via wireless, via ELF radio waves. That's extremely low frequency radio waves which can penetrate human tissue. My brain is linked up to military computers, hence I can be completely taken control of because they can enter my brain. The computer it's linked up to can instantly translate all of my brain's electrical activity into pictures, words, even smells. You really have no idea how advanced this technology is. They're just starting to write about it in the newspapers now, and they're purporting that these sorts of things are going to be possible in about 17 years' time. This is Billy Bollocks. They could do it over 50 years ago. This has been going on since the Second World War. This started with the Nazis and the concentration camps, and that's exactly what I am, a product of that, Hitler's master race, humans blended with technology. And thereafter as well, the wiring comes through my neck. This is microwiring. It goes right through my body, it's around my waist, it's between my legs, it goes right down the back to under my feet, and I've also got another major implant at the base of my spine as well. So this is absolute total control. Now, I believe I can... No, it's not. Well, you can see it quite clearly anyway. And again, the truss below my brain here is even more pronounced. On the other side, if you look closely again, you'll see fragments of another probe which have worked their way into the soft tissue of my brain. This is because I've had, well, several massive blows to my head in my time. I fell off a roof once and landed on my face, crushed my sinus cavity, but again, I got up. And I don't know it to be a fact, but one of the reasons I might still be alive is this technology inside of me. It's honestly myself. I've stood there. What's the advert? I can never remember which one it is. But the guy gets run over by a lorry and falls off a cliff, and he's standing up going, "This is my life." I'm like, how did I live through that? I mean, I've had so many. Well, you call them accidents, they haven't all been accidents. But anyway, the list goes on. Let me show you another one as well.
If you want to take them, might you want to use that as a pointer?
I got you. Right. Okay, you can see in my throat region here the 3 pronounced white dots. They're implants too. You can see the brain implant there on that side. It's not showing on the other here. An MRI scan, most of you, if you don't know, it's just a slice of your head. It's not like an X-ray which sees right through. So what you're getting here is just, they cut through the implants. Now, at the back of my upper jaws, and these are probably about, well, they're telescopic, to be frank with you. They were in there for years and dormant before I knew what they were. But they're telescopic, and they can bend like fingers do in any direction, and I've got these attached to the back of my upper jaw, essentially in the middle of my head. These are used to subdue me. These hurt like you would not believe. And I get it all the time. This is, it ranges from, mild and subtle to off the scale, really, to be frank with you. I can spend sometimes up to 24 hours at a time just completely paralysed, They could take me off my feet and knock me on the floor, just these itty-bitty little implants. This is absolute total control we're dealing with here. Is there anybody that's looking at those scans that's not convinced that this is legitimate? Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Because I've also got a letter from a doctor that's PhD level educated stating that you don't need any medical training whatsoever to see, that these are foreign bodies. I've also been interviewed by the national press. I was introduced to them by some seasoned hacks that that have been investigating military black ops for decades. And this, they told me, was the most significant proof they'd seen of what I am, essentially, which is a military monarch robot, to be frank with you. But it goes even deeper, and as I said to you, I've changed my mind quite a lot with regards to what I'm going to talk to you about today. As I said, predominantly because there are some far more knowledgeable people than me here with regards to things. I just deal with things firsthand. And it was quite a long time before I was able to accept what I'm told I am myself. My life really is representative of one big conspiracy. Something I rumbled when I was very young, and I've talked about constantly, about how manipulated my life has been, and I mean since my childhood. I'm not going to go into detail here and now about this, but my family are totally complicit with this. I'm from a military family, and I was quite exceptional at sport when I was young as well. I really had still have it to a degree, the agility of a cat. But I was being blocked in just about everything I tried to do in life. When I left school, I was on £50 a week from the European champions, but not really totally in the fold. I was a bit of I had an overdeveloped sense of fun, I was told, and I was rather wayward in some ways, but nonetheless, I was a teenager, and I was at the top club in the country, and but my life was being manipulated in all sorts of ways, and I became very, very aware of this, and consequently very, very independent. But went on in life ultimately to own my own company in the corporate media sector. And it was after 9/11, I was a media specialist as well, so I dealt with the magazines, the newspapers, television stations and the like. And after 9/11, like everybody, you know, I was, whoa, wow, you know, and I've always been a bit of a gobshite, but people have generally, you know, listened to me by and large, because a little bit like Miles, I just tell it, you know, as I see things, and you know, regardless of the consequences. So I started speaking about things, and people listened. And again, journalists came crawling out of the woodwork, and I was also, I won't go into too depth here. I used to hang out in the London underworld quite a lot as well, but it's not as sinister and bad as people might think. It's frightening to look at or think about, but believe me, people in those sorts of environments are a lot more straightforward and moralistic than the people I used to work with that wore suits and worked for corporate companies, believe me. So I mixed in lots and lots of different worlds, and again, this wasn't really an accident. As I said, my life had been manipulated to such a degree that I ended up in positions which were engineered, essentially, just as I have been. Because what this technology can do, via those radio waves, what you've got to think is like a two-way link, okay? Information in, information out, and the brain produces electrical activity. Now, that's carried into a computer which can instantly translate it, as I've explained, but the computer can also create radio electrical activity and brain waves and send them back in, and that's how they take control, and they can alter things. So essentially they can see everything I see, because everything I see is translated in my brain into computer language, and so they know that. Everything I say, everything that's said to me, I've got a microphone underneath one of the fillings of my tooth as well. So essentially, you know, I've been utilised for many, many things, and one of those things is a mobile, you know, surveillance unit. Mixing in the corporate world, the underworld, you know, I've been all over the world as well, and a lot of the time it was other people encouraging me to go, inviting me there, and whenever I got there, no matter what country I went to, I'd say to people, I'm being followed again. What on earth is going off? And I'd prove it to people. And obviously, you know, I've got older and older, and you know, I rumbled things. I actually figured out what had happened to me prior to finding out that I had the technology inside of me. Now, this is when it gets really freaky. Where have I put my water down? Never mind. Yeah, does anybody know what V2K is? Do you want to start? Oh, you haven't got a microphone on, have you? V2K is voice-to-school technology. Now, the first unclassified demonstration of this was at the Walter Reed Army Institute in America. 1974, they demonstrated that a voice could be directly input into somebody's skull, so they could hear a voice inside their skull via technology. Via these implants I've got here, I've been dealing with synthetic telepathy for years. Now, when it first kicked off, it was used, well, as something that they call confusion weaponry. It was used to disorientate me. Now, that's the state of play with me and the psychiatric services now, because I voluntarily went to see a whole team of them a couple of years ago, and they concluded, look, you're beyond, you know, our combined educations. We don't know how to advise you, even how to help you or to treat you. And to be frank, you know, the only question we've got is how can you deal with this? Because, you know, you really should need our help, but you don't appear that you do, so we don't think we're the appropriate people to deal with, and basically this scares the willies off us, and it seems to be all to do with the Secret Service. Which consequently, you know, I've gone on to find out that it is. I am covered by the Official Secrets Act, and have been all my life. Now, sorry, I've just lost myself to agree. I was going to move on to something there. And I am the product of a system, basically, a system that you're supposed to figure out, and in figuring it out, you're supposed to go completely insane, fall into the hands of the authorities who then drug you up, and, you know, you're not a problem to anybody else. You'll find that most targets, the likes of Moo and many others I've encountered over the years whilst I've been researching, were child abuse victims. Ritual child abuse victims. And so essentially they're putting this technology into little boys and girls who thereafter are growing up into big girls and big boys, perhaps capable of defending themselves, only to find out that they've been implanted with this horrific technology and they can be tortured out of existence. Now, the mindset of the people, the perps behind this, and this is rogue elements of the security services, are satanic. That's how I would describe their mindset, and I do believe they are satanic. And now, I couldn't understand lots of aspects of my childhood until I understood monarch mind control. And then it just became, it all fell into place, and I thought, oh my God. I always had my suspicions, but like everybody else, I need facts, I need proof, I need at least to have experienced something, but to find out that these monsters start work on certain children whilst they're still in the womb. They start causing a child trauma whilst it's still in the womb. Ways they do this, playing loud rock music to it for long periods of time, or even thumping the fetus. This is to cause splits in a personality. And again, there are people that have spoken here that are a lot more knowledgeable than I am with regards to this sort of thing. And this is why bloodlines and the like and whatnot play such a big part. And epidemics, or whatever the lady's speaking this morning, I've never heard that term until I met her. But I do understand that side of things, because things are passed on in our genes. And some of the things that are passed on are an ability to disassociate. Now, people who have an ability to disassociate make great mind control targets. So if somebody is from a family that has a history of satanic ritual abuse, the chances are that within their genes it will have been passed on that they have this ability to disassociate. Therefore, they can fracture their minds and create these separate alters very, very effectively. This has been done to me. I do know it now. And I certainly don't like the fact at all. But because of the V2K I deal with and the counselling I get, I've adopted a very, very, ultimately that is, a very, very patient approach to dealing with my circumstances, and not just my own. I'm not here just for me. I'm here to try and sort of educate people with regards to what a TI essentially is, because there's lots of them within your communities all over this country and all over the world, and they are treated horrifically, not only by the authorities but by their peers and people around them, because they talk about things which don't make sense to a lot of people, but they are the most tortured individuals you can possibly imagine. What this is, literally, it's akin, it is on a par with the concentration camps the Nazis had. It is as bad. But to be frank with you, most of them would turn around and say, well, look, just gas me or shoot me in the head. I want this over with, because this is long and it's drawn out, and the weaponry that's being used on them is just... It's as bad as things get. I mean, this is microwave technology. Where it's going from here, I don't know. But essentially, there are things that I'm still stood here thinking, man, should I talk about this? Should I tell them about that? But I suppose I should emphasise that what I said earlier about there are things about my life which I know to be facts. This technology in my head and the rest of my body is a fact, I can be taken complete control of. It's a fact, because I've had the demonstrations. They can put pictures in my head, videos in my head, sounds, whatever. They can influence me in an infinite amount of ways. But there's what I don't know. This is a conjecture I've learned, from research. And there's what I learned via V2K. Now, if what I've learned via V2K is true, wow, we are looking at something quite incredible. And to be honest with you, no, I'd be out here like a rat in a trap if they take this stuff out of me. As I said on Friday night, I would live like Bob Marley given half a chance. I'd play football and mess about. I won't swear this time either. But I really don't have any choice. And this is how I'm pacified, in my mind, because they explain things to me. They give me justification. They tell me that I've saved the lives of untold amounts of children and also prevented a nuclear war in the future, because I am literally linked up to a computer and they play war games with my mind. I'm put into situations where I have to negotiate. Our country is under threat, and it's usually the bloody Americans I'm dealing with as well, to be frank with you. And I'm told all this, and I can be sat, I remember this vividly, I'm looking at a drape in my friend's house, you know, a lace drape, and on there they just, it looks like it's project, but it's done in my head. They show a mushroom cloud of a nuclear bomb going off, and they pass it on me like this. They say, look, Kieron, you've prevented this. We cannot justify having stolen your life and taken it away, but you have prevented this. And honestly, my attitude a lot of the time is, and excuse my swearing, I do swear, but I'm entitled to, given what's been done to me. Bollocks is what I tell them. Just as I said to the doctor that told me what was wrong with me. But no, they persist, and they explain it to me, and they see me through things, and they carry me through. And every time I might be sort of like wilting to a degree, they'll pick me up. But this doesn't mean to say that I get an easy ride, because as they explained to me, there are a lot of people that do want me dead. And I am targeted all the time with directed energy weaponry. And the general populace needs to know this. These people, the likes of Moo, they need help. I've needed help a lot more than I do now. I can cope. You know, well, I shouldn't really say I can cope, because I shouldn't be coping with it. It is horrific. But this is a technological concentration camp. They've got people in their own homes implanted with this technology. Doctors are denying it, actively denying it as well, because a lot of them are totally aware of it, and they're being targeted with microwave weaponry and assorted other stuff as well, and for various reasons, sometimes just to experiment on them. And I know for a fact that the newspapers know this in this country. They've interviewed me, launched an investigation, and then told me that they've been censored. I know that they know it in the mainstream media across the board. I know politicians know it. I've got a letter from the House of Commons acknowledging this technology inside of me. I've met twice with my MP, Riet, and I also took him a man that had flown in from South America, a British man that was paying thousands of pounds to have operations, to have the technology taken out of him, and he got on a plane after fleeing an operating theatre, still with open wounds, because they'd knocked him out with general anaesthetic, come in and put more stuff into him, and he'd refused to let them near him again. Come to see me, and I took him directly to my doctor and then to my MP. My MP flatly refused to help at that point. Consequently, I lost my rag at him and spoke my mind, but I'm glad I did. And I've not finished with him either, because I've told a lot of people like him that they're going to be seeing me again. I'm going to go full circle. I'm going to revisit things. I'm going to have them, basically. But first of all, the general populace needs to wake up with what's going on, because your children, the next generation of children, are all going to have microchips inserted into their brains. It is going to happen. It is going to be their first experience of life, neurosurgery, an injection straight into the brain. Once this has happened, you know, there can be no political dissent in the future. Everybody will be assigned a sort of job to do. They will robotise our society. What's inside of me, yes, is large. You know, this is extensive stuff, but it was put into me in 1975. You know, technology has advanced so far since between then and now that we're dealing with nanotechnology. This is practically impossible to detect with modern scanning equipment. And it's just one injection into a vein. The implant opens up like an umbrella. It's carried around your system and it's logged into your brain, and everything that can be done to me with this rig up I've got inside of me can then thereafter be done to that child or that human being. And believe me, I've seen the information that this relates to. The American government has bought millions and millions of these chips from a German company. They haven't bought them not to use them. The mainstream media at the moment is conditioning people to accept it. I've got a blog, and I think the last post I put on there was a BBC article explaining that they're going to be able to treat drug addicts and people with post-traumatic stress and depression and the like by putting a chip into the brain, because they can erase memories. They can make them forget that they were a heroin addict. Well, this is brilliant. But the thing is, they're lying through their teeth all the time. What they're doing is trying to get people to accept it. And if people accept it, they're doing a sell job on us. If we accept it, we can't oppose it. So stealthily, they are now working on nailing us all, basically. We do have an us and them situation. They declared war on the globe's population a very, very long time ago, and we're just waking up. And something's got to be done about it. And reluctantly, and I will state this, reluctantly, this is who I am. You know, I am somebody that's spent the last few years kicking down doors, basically, using myself as a battering ram, putting myself in the firing line, and trying to get the powers that be to do something about this. But it's all been research for me as well, because, you know, I read a long time ago that, you know, there are, globally there are international intelligence agreements in place to suppress and deny any information relating to the usage and deployment of this technology at all. And I guarantee you there is, because I've tested everything, everywhere. I've been everywhere. The media, medics, law, you name it, I've spoke to them. The civil rights companies, they know full well what's going on, but they're complicit. Do not give them another bloody penny. People in this country are being tortured out of existence, tortured to death. And I told them a couple of weeks ago, look, you're complicit, because if you release one article, the general populace would start to believe this. But when they're told the sorts of things that I'm telling you now, they automatically think to themselves, nah, it can't be happening, because if it was happening, Liberty or Amnesty International would be saying something about this, surely. And the fact that they aren't, you know, does amount to complicity, because they know this, and I've nailed them on it, because I'm a salesman, a board-level salesperson, and I didn't lead with my chin, and I got put onto somebody quite senior there, and I did it on purpose to test things, and I've been doing that, you know, all over the place. So this isn't like me doing a book promotion and whatever, because I really don't want to do this. I'm going to have to sort of like, you know, openly and publicly, you know, explain certain things about my life, which I rather would not do. But in doing that, I believe I can set free an awful lot of people that were sold into slavery, just like I was as a child. So I'm going to hand out lots of cards now. I've got them printed for this conference, so I'm just going to hand them out. I'd like you to take them. There's going to be some on the table out there, and I want you to go to my blog and have a read, but also follow it, because I'm now going to tell my story. I'm going to do it myself online, rather than give it to the newspapers for when I'm dead, because it'll be twisted. That's what they will do. They'll twist it and they'll repaint it. The victors write the history, but no one's beating this. No one's beating me. No, and that's my character, and that's what the army tell me. This is why I'm in the position I am. But I'm going to finish off with something here, because this is something I don't know to be true, but this is something I've been told via V2K. I was never a magical thinker. As far as I was concerned, life was about having fun. You know, if we're gifted with life, we should just be enjoying it, you know, and that's as I saw things, and achieve and what have you. But I've been educated with regards, not just there, by these people as well, that there is a lot more to it than I knew, you know. But there's a lot more to me than I knew. I don't know this. Now, I'm quite happy to accept my family as I knew them are my true and real family. But I have some serious doubts. I always did in a way, but a lot of other people went out of their way to tell me that they're not. Now, I have to try and decipher this, you know, because a lot's done to confuse me and disorientate me. But when I say to you my life is a conspiracy, I've had this conspiracy explained to me in quite some depth in my head, and what they tell me, I don't know if this is done to motivate me. I'll tell you what, front, you'll all have heard of Paul Weller, you know, my favourite singer, to be frank with you, but in the words of one of his songs, they let you think you're king, but you're really a pawn. Now, what he's referring to, I believe I know, it's a system, a British system, predominantly a male system, and he's very, very brutal, and it's how people are manipulated. And I was sold into this when I was young. This is how they handle people that have been sold into slavery when they get older. The difference being, though, is I'm told that I really am not my parents' son, that I'm the grandson of Edward VIII. Now, Edward VIII, I happen to bear quite a resemblance to him as well. I mean, I must say it myself, this young lady here pointed the same thing out yesterday. When I look at photographs of me when I was a younger man, I think, crumbs, yeah. I mean, my face is all swollen and what now, but it was quite slimmer then. This technology makes it swell up. But I do think it, and again, I can't accept this, but it keeps coming up, and they're telling me this. Now, you think about it, this technology came from the Nazis. Now, if he was my grandpappy, he used to hang around with Hitler. Now, it figures, really, he abdicated, and I've read quite a bit about this now for obvious reasons, and really, Hitler was going to put him back on the throne after we'd been conquered. Now, I believe the Second World War was part of one big conspiracy, and things have just continued beyond. Now, if this is true, and don't quote me on this, because I don't know it to be a fact at all, and I'm quite happy, to accept that it's not the case. But if it is true, it makes complete sense that the British Army then took me in and put me into this system which is really designed around, you must have heard the words, I didn't know about any of that, I get it all told in my head. Have you heard the words, Kieron? If he is a true king, he will be sold into slavery as a child, and he will fight his way out of it. I'm just finishing on that line. I was just about to say, this is who I'm told I am. I don't know it to be a fact, but we'll see. I could well be your true king. You never know.
Well done, Kieron. You did a good job. You could hear a pin drop in here. Okay. We got a 1 hour, 20 minutes lunch break. 2:20, we're going to have the first 3 speakers' question and answers. Okay, at 2:20. After lunch, it'll be Matthew Williams, crop circles, and what they actually see when they've been making them. Okay?